Republicans in West Virginia are simultaneously calling teachers groomers and voting down legislation that would prevent child marriage in their state. Currently, children can marry as young as 16 in West Virginia with parental consent. Anyone younger than that must also get a judge's waiver, and then you can get married earlier. The bill's main sponsor, Democratic Del Kayla Young of Kanawha County, has said that since 2000, there have been more than 3,600 marriages in the state involving one or more children. Again, to be clear, that means you can get married in West Virginia even if you are younger than 16 years old, as long as a judge is cool with it. The bill would establish that 18 is the age of consent and remove the ability of a minor to obtain consent through their parents, legal guardians, or by court petition. Existing legal marriages, including those done in other states, would be unaffected. But that wasn't acceptable to the Republicans who dominate the state Senate, was it? Of course not. The Senate Judiciary Committee rejected the bill without debate on an 8-9 vote, a week after it passed the House of Delegates, meaning children in West Virginia can still get married. Wild. By the same 8-9 margin, members of the committee voted to remove a clause from a strike and insert amendment to a separate bill that would have closed a loophole in West Virginia law that currently makes many instances of spousal rape legal in West Virginia. They voted against making spousal rape illegal, to make that very clear. Some of the bill's opponents have argued that teenage marriages are part of life in West Virginia. Here's Republican Senator Mike Stewart, a former federal prosecutor who sided with the majority, using his parents as his reasoning to oppose the bill.
I'm one of those guys that I've got parents who 50 years later are still giddy teenagers that were married at the age of 16, and this guy who's the luckiest guy in the world. I've got the greatest parents in the world. I can accept a number of 16, right? My parents were married at 16. They are disgustingly in love. To this day, they can't keep their hands off each other. And so I would ask this body to consider a more reasonable figure of 16.
These people are so very stupid. They are deeply, deeply stupid. You're the luckiest guy in the world because you exist and your parents happen to have been 16 when he was born, which was about 180 years ago. What's that got to do with what the law should be and the age should be? I was born a long time ago. My parents were 16. So I urge this body to not change anything and never update nothing and make sure that children are at risk everywhere of being sold off into marriages because I'm here, everybody. How exciting. Interestingly, the bill was resurrected by the state Senate today despite failing in committee. It will be up for a final reading today, and the Senate will have the right to amend the bill, but that does not mean it's gonna pass. Several senators gave impassioned speeches after the bill was brought back, some of whom defended the right of teenagers in love to marry. If there was ever a state that needed this bill to pass, it's West Virginia. It is a backwards, strange place oftentimes. All respect, I probably will perform there one day, but the point is, come on, get with the times a little bit. Although recent figures are unavailable, according to the Pew Research Center, West Virginia had the highest rate of child marriages among the states in 2014, when the state's 5-year average was 7.1 marriages for every 1,000 children ages 15 to 17. But make no mistake, it's not just there. Republicans everywhere seem to be proponents of child marriage. A proposal in Wyoming, for example, would have raised the minimum age to 16, raised it to 16 with parental consent, sparking outrage from the state's Republicans. The Wyoming Republican Party circulated an email that included an argument from lobbyists that since minors could get pregnant, marriage must remain open to them for the sake of those children. Wow, sometimes 9-year-olds can get pregnant. Should that be the marriage age? What kind of an insane argument? Because sometimes people get stuck in bad choices, bad situations, things out of their control. They should be allowed now also to marry. And also, they're forced to have that baby in many parts in the country now. And so we may as well also ruin more parts of their lives. That's the argument? Bonkers.
All right, so a number of things here. Number one, obvious hypocrisy. It's what Ben started with. So groomers. Oh, you wanna let 15-year-old girls get married to adult men? Yeah. I mean, like literally. So Republicans are arguing, let's let kids get married. I mean, look, there's no limitations in 8 different states, no limitations at all. You can marry girls as young as you want. And so they say that's not pedophilia. Actual pedophilia is not pedophilia. Democrats being Democrats is pedophilia. They're arguing, passionately arguing. Let us marry the children.
If an old white male judge signs off on it, Cenk, I don't see the issue.
It's so true because, the way that this ancient guy was like, my parents were 16. It's like, no, if you pass this law, it's not just 16-year-olds that can marry each other. It's 40-year-olds that can marry 16-year-olds. And that is pedophilia. That is literally pedophilia. Like a 40-year-old should not legally be allowed to marry a 16-year-old, even with the parents' consent. The parents' consent thing is also ridiculous.
If you don't pass the law.
16 is like, Mom, I want a new phone, and also to get married. What?
Yeah.
No.
No permission.
Time out.
No. Hell no. Okay. All right. So look, I'm gonna tell you why they're doing this in a second, but I like where you guys are going with this. But I have my grandmother, so I'll be like this guy. Well, my grandmother, I think it was in the 1930s that she got married in southeastern Turkey. She was 17. Okay. That's why we should let them marry kids. What? Okay, that was like 1 million years ago in a remote area of rural Turkey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same.
My grandma was 16. It was in China, and the life expectancy then was 18. I mean, it's a different world.
It's a different world.
My grandma was 15 when she got married in rural South Korea and was illiterate. And trust me, she didn't want that life.
By the way, that's something.
She wasn't like, woo! I got married at 15 and had 10 kids.
And the fact that Helen exists doesn't mean she believes this is a great idea.
No.
Yes, and by the way, my grandmother hated it too.
Yeah.
They're still in love. That's why I'd like to marry your 15-year-old daughter. No is the answer. So look, we're doing a petition on this because we want to see do the Republicans mean it or don't they mean it? We're asking Speaker McCarthy to introduce a nationwide bill, #ProtectOurKids from legalized grooming. You could use the QR code to sign it. You could go to the link that you see there. We'll have the link down below in the description box. Easy, click there. But tell Speaker McCarthy, so do you want to protect our kids or do you want legalized grooming? Because those are actually your choices. And they're actually voting in places like West Virginia, Wyoming, Tennessee. Republicans are pushing child marriage all across the country while pretending to be against grooming. It's amazing, amazing. So look, we're trying to help Democrats here. And I don't mean that in some political way. I just mean so that they can fight back and we can win on policy, right? Democrats, why don't you call them groomers when they're actually groomers? And if this petition gets really large, one Democrat in the country might be like, oh wait, that's a really good idea. That is what they're doing, isn't it? Maybe I could fight back. Yeah, maybe you could.
But Cenk, what if a 12-year-old child bride sees a book in the library and learns that gay people exist? We can't live in that world.
Ban the book and let her get married to a 48-year-old Republican.
That's the
way to protect her. Okay, and by the way, so why are they doing it? Because normally for Republicans, almost everything is either driving hatred to get more voters, or their actual goal, tax cuts for the rich, deregulation of corporations, right? But wait a minute, this is actually neither. They're driving hatred towards themselves here, because the great majority of the country, including a lot of Republican voters, are like, you want to get married to my 14-year-old daughter? No, you pervert. I'm not interested in that. So why are they doing it? White replacement theory. They think that they're being replaced, and so they're in a panic to produce more kids. All the right-wing media is going, oh, you got to get married right away. Doesn't matter how young you are. Tim Pool did it. The Daily Wire did it. They're all Fox News did it. Oh, you got to get married right away, right? And get as many kids as you can. As many kids as you can. The immigrants are coming. The immigrants are coming. We got to have more babies. That's why they're doing this. So they're like, all right, you know what, these women, we've taken away their rights and they can't control their bodies anymore, but they are of some use. Let's get them started the minute they hit puberty. Let's go, baby machines, go, 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 go. That's what this is about.
That makes so much sense because I couldn't figure out. I was like, what? How does this help them? But you're right, it's replacing. And especially now, related to the story is that spousal rape, not a problem, not an issue. So if you want to rape your 14-year-old bride and she gets pregnant, no problem. No problem at all. Legal.
Basically, the plan is take away women's rights, like Cenk said, so that they are forced to have babies they do not want to have, and then the baby's born, and they're allowed to have some rights until they reach marrying age, but there's no programs to support them, and they've been brought into the world sometimes without resources, and so by the time they reach marrying age, they're like, please marry me off to whoever you can. I just need some food and someone to take care of me. I'm rightsless. That's the Wild West that the right is fighting for in this country.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.